So this is the exact system that we used to generate $46,400 in revenue from one webinar for our client Casey. And as you can see, we had a crazy ROAS, 9.5 to 1, and we profited $41,500 and collected 26K and in contracted revenue 46K. And as you can see, some of these payments. So I'm going to structure this into 3 different categories. We have the pre-webinar, the actual webinar itself, and then the post-webinar. And so if we begin with the pre-webinar, we tested 6 different image ads as well as 6 different video ads. And these video ads aren't turning on, but basically, like, our video editor did a fantastic job. And all of this was basically just a split test, like, okay, what creative actually performs the best. And so this got us to a cost per lead on about $6.5, which is honestly amazing considering her actual audience, because the leads that she's getting in from these ads are fantastic. Now you can actually see the ads. So these were super, super good. And as I said, like, the leads were like very sophisticated, so like 6.5 USD per lead is actually very low considering her niche. We spent about $5,000, which is crazy considering we made 46,000 in contracted revenue, and anyone who's in marketing knows like a 10 to 1 ROAS is abysmal. Like, that is crazy. So we did a really, really good job with the marketing. And so whenever someone signed up from these ads and actually clicked on the link that we were saying that like they were going to do, we then took them to a landing page that we made on Lovable. Super, super easy, to be fair. But basically they got directed to a website where basically we said, this is a webinar that we're running and here's a video, and then they watch this video saying like, okay, this is the webinar, yada yada. Here's also the time. And whenever someone has registered, we don't want to stop there. Instead, we actually want to make sure to capitalize on the actual moment when they register. So instead of just sending an email like, okay, you're registered, show up on this date, we give them some instructions. First, we say, add the workshop or the webinar to your calendar, and you have links to actually add this. So we had Google and Outlook links. Then you basically say, check your inbox just to make sure that people actually open the email. In case, for example, if it has landed in spam, then it's super great and super good to actually instruct them on this. And then once they've actually seen the email and opened it, then they can also hit reply. You don't have to do this, but it can boost email health. So especially like if you're sending a lot of emails, this can be super valuable, because otherwise, like, if your email is not in good status, then your emails won't get delivered, basically. And then the final step that I think is very, very underrated is creating a sort of broadcast group. So either on WhatsApp or Telegram, you can choose. You basically say like, if you want the lead magnet that I showed on the registration page, which we had like over here, then make sure to join the WhatsApp group, because there I'll share it. And in this WhatsApp group, the reason why you want to actually direct them to a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group is because you're going to be sending reminders there as well. And it's like email, like you just send like multiple messages, but what's the difference is like whenever you send a WhatsApp message, you actually get that message on your phone and you're actually going to open it, compared to email. Like, you get spammed by so many emails every single day, but with WhatsApp it's something different because it's like an SMS. So this is super, super valuable, and I strongly recommend it. Now, once someone has actually registered, we want to make sure that they actually show up. And so what we did was, whenever someone showed up, we added them to a tag saying like webinar on this date. And we then created some sequences saying like, okay, whenever this tag is added, then run this sequence. And this is like confirmation. You have like a reminder, basically 1 hour before the webinar, and then actually like the webinar itself. So we ran a few SMS sequences. And what we also did was basically reminder emails saying like, okay, you know, the webinar is in this many days, this is some information about me. And like, you can do so many different emails, and it is super valuable. Like, create, you know, you can do like 3 SMS reminders and then like 15 emails or something like that. You know, it depends on how many days out your webinar is. Obviously, if it's further away, like if it's 2 weeks out, then you want to send more emails, even though I don't recommend launching a webinar 2 weeks before the actual webinar. But, you know, I would definitely recommend running like 10, 15 emails before the webinar. What we also did was on the WhatsApp group, as I said, we basically sent messages reminding them. So, for example, we said, welcome to the WhatsApp group. Make sure to check the lead magnet, basically. And then we also had like, hey, we're live in 1 hour. Make sure to join. And obviously we sent a lot more in between this. But like it could be a lot of different things. And you can get very, very creative with WhatsApp. Like, for example, like you could do like a polls saying like, okay, finishing up the presentation, what are your current struggles in your business? What is your bottleneck? Something like that. Could also, you know, if you have YouTube videos, you can also direct them to the YouTube videos. That way they actually get nurtured a lot more and they're kind of sold on you before they even hop on the webinar. Like that is so valuable. And then what we also do is hammer them ads, and this isn't like a crucial step, but it is something that you can do to level up your game. Basically, for everyone that registers, you want to run this specific ads. Like you can run a few different ones, like you can run some static ads as well. But what we did, for example, is create a video saying like, you've registered for the workshop now. Here's next steps. Like make sure to not miss it. And you basically just target the people who've registered on Meta, and like this will boost your show up rate. And like if, as I said, like maybe not for your first webinar, but like when you level up, this is something that you can do. And so all of this basically led to us having about 750 registrants, and we had about 224 people showing up, which isn't amazing. I mean, what is that, like a 30% show up rate? But consider this, like this is completely cold traffic. We only ran like pretty much cold traffic ads, I'm pretty sure, because Casey's personal brand was really, really dry. Like it was really dry. And so when you're maybe targeting people warm audience, then like you should probably be aiming at like a 40-50% show up rate. But if it's completely cold, then 25 to 35% is actually pretty good. So we had a pretty like okay show up rate. But that was basically all we did for the pre-webinar. In the pre-webinar. Then when it came to the actual webinar itself, Casey already had a great presentation. So we didn't really have to do that much because she already did run webinars before. There was more of like, we had to implement a lot of technical stuff in the pre-webinar and post-webinar, but the actual presentation itself was super good. But some tips that I can give is like, you want to follow like a structure. You can probably search up like Jason Flatlinen's webinar structure. It's super good. But like these are kind of the pillars that you want to be using. So you want to have 3 different pillars, or like 3 sections, and then in the content section you want to have 3 different pillars. So basically you want to say like in the beginning of the webinar you want to establish your authority. Then you want to create commitment, and you could, for example, say like type dried in the chat. If you're going to stay until the end of the webinar, you always want to keep the chat engaged, saying like, type this if you resonate, type this, if you feel this pain, whatever. Like you need to keep people engaged, especially in this day and age where people are so distracted. Also, you want to be handling objections early on, super valuable. And you want to do this through, knowing your audience, knowing, what objections people usually have. You want to create hope, saying like you believe in them. And then you want to build intrigue and actually make it interesting what you're actually talking about. Then in the content section, you want to have 3 different pillars. And this is like, it could be a list or a step-by-step guide or pillars. It could be very, very different things, but you want to have like, for example, a 3-step plan on how to make money on Amazon. I don't know, something like that. And then the most important thing I would say is like give a ton of free value. If you don't give a ton of free value, people are not going to like your webinar to begin with. And also, it's like it builds so much trust because people are going to think like, wow, if this person gives me so much free value, imagine what this paid thing is going to be. And the perceived value of your actual offer is going to be so much higher. And then in the pitch, you want to use bonuses, discounts, build urgency, build scarcity, all this, basic stuff. But it's super, super valuable. You want to create a banging offer because that is going to be super, super valuable. And statistics were very, very good. The webinar was about an hour, and our average watch time was 49 minutes. And this was due to, a great presentation. And it's such a key. It makes such a big difference if you have a really, really good presentation. You can probably create one on Canva. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to spend days doing it, but like spend like a full day creating this presentation. And it's going to be super valuable. For Casey, she uses the same presentation every single webinar, just pushing it out to different audiences since it's cold, and it works. So what we did was basically, instead of booking a call directly, like when you run webinars, you can do it like in 3 different ways. You can run direct to cart, saying like just click the link and purchase, purchase directly. Or you could do book a call, basically saying like, okay, book a call with me below. But what you can also do is basically do an application first, making sure that the leads are actually qualified. And so they still book a call, but first they actually have to qualify in the process of this type form. So we ask a few questions. Like for Casey's type form, it was very long, I'm going to be honest. And I wouldn't recommend doing it this long. Like you can probably do like 4 or 5 questions. But we really wanted to make sure that every single lead was very, very qualified. And the determining question for us was this one, saying like, how much are you willing to invest in the next 6 months? If someone answered only my time, then they would get disqualified and redirected to like a different sequence, and then finally like, okay, this is not the right step for you. If someone answered anything else, then they would actually be able to book a call. And what we did was like, okay, our closer would take the leads that were on 2.5k to 6k or under here, and then Casey wanted to take the calls on the first webinar for the more high intent leads. And all of this, we basically had about 50 submissions and 90 starts. So a good premise to have is like, the more friction you have, the less calls you're going to book. If we just put a Calendly link on the webinar, we would have probably like booked 100 calls. Instead, we booked about like maybe 40. And so the pros and cons is like, if you just put a Calendly link, you're going to get a lot less qualified leads, but you're going to get more calls. If you, for example, create more friction like this with a type form and all this qualifying process, you're going to get less leads, but every single lead is going to be a lot more qualified. And so it all comes down to like, okay, what matches you? But I would recommend doing some kind of qualification. You could do this on Calendly as well. Like you can ask a few questions saying like, what are you making at the moment? And then saying like, are you willing to invest? If not, then don't book. You don't have to run them on like a type form, but you can do different. Finally, once someone has actually booked, we then added them to a new email sequence, saying like, basically warming them up, nurturing them, especially on a cold traffic like Casey had. It's super important to actually nurture them because people are so cold. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you do. And it's super, super, super important to actually warm them up with all these different emails. You don't have to do all of these, but we wanted to run them on Go High Level, but you can also run them on Calendly. I know Calendly has very, very good email delivery, so you could probably run them in there as well, but we ran them on Go High Level. Finally, once you've actually run the webinar, you've only collected about 70% of your revenue, and there's so much more money left on the table. Like with the post webinar, you can probably collect an extra 30%. And so what we did, our follow-up strategy, is basically running email, WhatsApp, and direct call to action ads as our follow-up mechanisms. So on Webinar Jam, which is where we basically ran our webinars, you can actually like segment between attendees and non-attendees. So for everyone who didn't attend, we basically sent them this email sequence saying like, okay, watch the replay, here's the replay, and I'll get more into the replay later. But basically, you don't want to actually push the offer or the coaching yet, but you want to actually push the offer maybe at the end. But as soon as someone has actually watched the replay, you want to remove them from this sequence. And for attendees, everyone who's attended from the webinar, we basically want to run this sequence. You don't really want to mention the webinar or the replay because they've been there, but you can also always like say, if you missed the end, then you can actually, still watch it. But like the premise is like you want to push the actual offer here, and push on bonuses. You can basically say like use social proof, saying okay, this person bought and look where he is now, and push a lot on that, using scarcity, urgency, stuff like that. We also use the WhatsApp group, and this is also why I love the WhatsApp group, because as I said, like this is basically like an extra email. We basically sent them a ton of messages saying like, you can still watch the replay, you can still book a call or apply. Here, for example, we said, okay, you can still apply. And we probably got a few applications just from this. And so this is really, really valuable. And like creating a WhatsApp group is free. Like it's such a underrated system, and same with Telegram. And like it doesn't matter if you run it on WhatsApp or Telegram, but it's so underrated. What we also did was run some direct call to action ads. These are similar to kind of hammer them, because you're basically just targeting one certain person. Like you're only targeting people who've actually registered for the webinar. So as you can see, like if you were on the workshop, you now know, etc. And then you basically say, I still have a few spots left from my offer. Click the link below, and you'll be able to still get the bonuses. And all of this, like it can boost your revenue with an extra 30. I've even seen 40% just from implementing the right follow-up system. And with the replay, sorry, we didn't use replay there, but from WhatsApp and email, we actually pushed the replay. And basically what a replay page is like, it's as it sounds. Like we basically download the webinar and put it on a lovable replay page. And whenever someone signs up here, they then want to, what you can do, I don't think we did this for this webinar, but what you can do is actually add them to a tag and then create a new automation saying like, okay, now you've watched the replay, here's your chance to apply for the offer. And then whenever someone actually watches the replay, you want to remove them from this sequence, the non-attendees, because they've actually watched it. But this is a great chance for people who've, weren't able to attend, maybe had, some work, or maybe had family issues, whatever. Very, very common. So it's a great way to collect some more money. Very, very powerful. And then whenever someone books, we basically want to redirect them to a pre-call page saying like, okay, now you've booked your call, like here's next. Because for every single person that has a booked, you want to actually nurture them even more. So what you can do on this pre-call page, this is just the top bit, but what you can do is like you can put interviews, client testimonials. You can say like what the program will give you. You want to basically just sell them and nurture them so much more, because whenever they hop on this call, they're going to be so much more nurtured and so more high intent leads. And so this is something I strongly recommend you set up, because once you've set it up, like you can just run the same thing every single time, and it's super, super valuable. What we did for Casey, we actually named the price, which you can do because you qualify so much harder. The only thing is that it will lead to less show-ups when it comes to your meetings, because people may be thinking like, okay, now that I know the price, I don't know if I'm gonna buy this, because obviously on a sales call you can actually handle objections. If they cancel, you can't handle them, those objections. So it's up to you if you want to actually drop the price. But the premise is like, if you drop it, it will reduce your show-up rate on your calls. If you don't drop it, then you will have a little less qualified leads. Finally, what we did also is that we added them to a brand new sequence as well when it comes to email, whenever someone books, basically. And obviously you can run this on Calendly as well, but we ran it on GHL. And so basically what we want to do is just nurture as well. We want to say like, okay, here's, you booked your calls, here's what's next. Add this to your calendar. So you want to link as well, like the actual call to your calendar. And then like you want to nurture them, saying like, okay, here's my story, here's some client success, etc. Basically just, nurturing so much, like that's so valuable. And this is basically all we did. Our closer came in, closed, I think like 40-50%, which is really good. And that is basically how we made this money. Now, if you want to watch the full interview that we did with Casey, you can click the video at the top or somewhere on the screen, I don't know. And if you're a coach, authority figure, someone who's an expert and looking to scale your business, then you can book a call with me in the description and we'll have a look at your business. Worst case, you leave and I'll give you some free value. So if you're considering it, book a call and I'll see you.